that nonfiction book that my husband and I did, it came out the year after my dad died. So and and people love free speakers, libraries, Rotary clubs, Kiwanis clubs, everybody loves a free speaker. And I had never done any speaking, so I was happy to have a chance to learn how to do it. Anyway, whenever Don and I did those talks, people would always ask if there were going to be more Jim Chijo Leaphorn books. And just like you mentioned, was there something in a box, something at the publisher just waiting to be dusted off, ideas for a book that somebody could, move on? And there wasn't. Dad really took care of all of that. He died of Lou Gehrig's disease. And so about the last year of his life, he was very low energy and depressed. So no, there were no more books. So I'm listening to, people say this, and I have to say, no, there wasn't, he didn't, there won't be. I don't think I said there won't be, but there won't be any coming from Dad. And then I could just see how disappointed the person was. And often he'd say, well, I'm going to reread this whole series again. It's my favorite series. So after a while, and at this point, I'm still dealing with my own grief about the loss of Dad. But after a while, it dawned on me that while I was always going to miss my dad, maybe there would be something I could do about keeping the characters alive. I mean, even though I'd never written a novel, I knew how to write and I knew how to work with editors. And I had just reread all 18 of his books to write the Tony Hillerman landscape book. So his voice and the voice of Jim Chi and Joe Leaphorn were very strongly in my head. So I thought, well, what's the worst thing that happens? I spend more than a year doing this. I show it to my mom. She says, yeah. And, I set it aside. So, I didn't really, when I started it, I didn't have very high expectations. But as I got into it, I thought this does have some legs. So I talked to the editor who Dad had worked with. And because I was thinking, I was naive in the beginning. And then I thought, well, maybe there's some copyright, something going on here that I need to know about if I'm going to be writing about these characters. So I talked to her and she said, no, feel free. And then she said, when you reach a point where you think, it's something that you'd like another set of eyes to take a look at, I'd be glad to look at it for you. So I was encouraged and terrified all at the same time. I always thought, well, Dad created the character of Bernadette Manuelito, I think, in Fallen Man. And I always kind of liked her. And I thought that she had a lot more potential than he had given her. And I even said to him, I think your readers might be ready to see a woman move into a stronger role. And, you've done, here's Bernie. She's kind of ready to move on. And I could tell that was not his idea. And he wasn't having any of it. But the idea stayed with me. So after he died, and when I thought, I will never be able to be Tony Hillerman, but if I'm going to continue this series, I need to be respectful of the traditions that he set up, but I also need to do something different. So it will have my own imprint. And so it can continue to grow. So the character of Bernadette Manuelito really gave me the ability to do that. Uh, and I knew also because I was this was my first novel. I thought there's no way I can think of something for three main characters to be dealing with. So poor Joe Leaphorn got kind of ingloriously pushed aside, shall we say, for that book. But he was still in it, but he just wasn't solving any crimes. They are married in the last book that Dad wrote, Shapeshifter, but he never had really been able to use them together as active crime solvers. So that was really fun. I thought this is going to be the way that the rest of my series will go. Jim Chi and Joe and Bernie Manuelito as partner crime solvers. But then when I came to write the second book, I realized that Bernie did not want to do that. Writers talk about how characters speak to them, but what's more scary is when they don't speak to you, when they say, nope, this isn't me, I'm not doing it. So when I was writing Rock with Wings, that's when I realized that I had to have Bernie always, if I was going to write about Bernie, she had to be front and center. I brought Joe back for the first time in Tellteller, and it was I realized that I liked that character more than I thought I had, and I had missed him. So, yeah, it was fun, and it was fun to put him in kind of a mentorship role with Chi and Bernie to let him really be the senior statesman instead of just, a retired guy who gets these cases, to kind of let him use his experience in police force to really help nurture their careers. What do you think about this name? Do not call a child bear. We never use that name because if you say that name, that means you are calling a bear and you do not want a bear to come to your house. So I changed the name and called him Sam.
Tell us.
Sometimes I get names. A lot of times authors get asked to donate stuff for a good cause, and one thing they asked us to donate is our naming rights. In Lost Birds, there's a waitress named Debbie Joe, and Debbie Joe's husband bought the naming rights for Debbie Joe to be in my book. So that was how that waitress got to be named Debbie Joe. And that's also why she is so smart and she can remember everybody's order, even if she hasn't seen them for 3 weeks. Shadow of the Solstice, there were grandparents who bought the rights. It was a benefit for a literacy program in Albuquerque. When I was thinking about what this new book would be, since I had just done a Joe Leaphorn book, I thought Joe Leaphorn he can take some time off now. He can go back to his consultant role. So I knew it was going to be a Bernie and Chi book, and because of Bernie and Chi, in the last book, I knew that I had to do something about Bernie's mom, who's an ongoing character, and Bernie's sister. So those were all like on the beginning sheet. So I always, because of my background as a reporter, I'm always paying attention to the news. And in the news, there were some horrific stories about Navajo people being basically kidnapped and taken to Phoenix and signed up for fake Medicaid benefits and put in what they call group homes where they would be helped to get over, theoretically helped to recover from addiction to drugs or alcohol. But in fact, they didn't get any help. All that happened was that these shysters stole their Medicaid benefits. And so I thought this is such a sad story, and it's a story that really deserves some attention. And so I thought I want to use this somehow in this new book. And the other thing that was happening, there's a uranium mine on the south side of the Grand Canyon, and it borders Navajo land. And the Navajo Nation, as a lot of people understand, the Navajo Nation has a long and very traumatic history with uranium. And so these uranium trucks then were going to be rolling on through the Navajo Nation again, and the Navajo president stopped the trucks. And this made me think it would be interesting to do something about ecology and specifically about mining and extraction and uranium. So I kind of had those two threads for stories. And then the other thing I thought about, I have always really liked the character of Darlene Manuelito, Bernie's little sister. And I thought it would be nice to give Darlene a bigger role in this story. So I guess those were the three, maybe a bunch of the main elements that I was beginning with when I started the story. And of course, since it's a mystery, I always like to begin with something dead. So, we start with the discovery of a body, and then things go on from there.